So the purpose for the webinar, and with consideration to time, I'm only going to be focusing on rules of the road specifically. So that means I won't be talking about trails. However, more information about biking on trails can be found here. I've just posted in the chat a link to a online trail riding webinar that's going to be hosted by WABA on May 6th. And I can also send this out in the email that goes out after the webinar, but just to keep that in mind. So I've broken this down by a couple of major sections, the first of which is follow the law. So what does that mean, following the law? Obeying traffic signals, stop signs, and lane markings with traffic. So you should be riding in the direction that traffic is going. You should not be going against traffic unless you are in a contraflow lane. You should also be yielding to crossing traffic. So when you approach an intersection, if you don't have the right of way, you must yield. This can be tricky because sometimes other roadway users, like cars, will wave you through the intersection. It also includes yielding to pedestrians and crosswalks. Be prepared to look at traffic that might not be. If you're approaching an intersection, there's a stop sign, and a car is coming, also oncoming traffic going this way, and the two stop signs. If one car who stopped to let you go through, just make left or the opposite way to see that oncoming traffic will not be expecting you. Also, yielding when you're changing lanes. So before you change lanes, look behind you, scan around, and as for positioning, speed positioning. So the slowest vehicles on the road should be the furthest to the right. Motorists generally and therefore should anticipate bicyclists being in the rightmost lane, and you should always pass on the left. So you should be following similar guidelines as to which motorists will be using. Of course, not everyone follows that rule, but we're talking in best case scenarios. Now, for lane positioning, when you're riding your bike, you have the option of using the bike lane or taking lane. Taking the lane means being in the middle of the lane. So that means, dead center of the two lines. In either case, you should ride a safe distance from the curb or parked cars. We tell people to give yourself 3 feet of buffer room. So that means 3 feet between either the car that's parked on your side or the cars that are moving on either side. The reason why we say 3 feet is because this is about the length of, or the distance between you and perhaps a car door opening. Depending on the jurisdiction you're riding in, you also have the option of riding on the sidewalk. In the District of Columbia, riding on the sidewalk is allowed outside the downtown central business district. So for more information on the downtown central business district, I would encourage you to do a simple Google search. There's a couple boundaries to keep in mind, but those are the boundaries that you are within the central business district. You are not allowed to ride on the sidewalk. In Maryland, bicycling on the sidewalks is prohibited unless authorized by state law. And in Virginia, bicycling on sidewalks is authorized unless prohibited. So it's very confusing depending on if you're riding in and out of states, but just try to be mindful and look around and stay safe. Another positioning that you need to be aware of is when it comes to intersections. So you should position yourself so that you are on the rightmost lane of the direction that you're going. So for turning, for instance, if you are in a lane that's turning left, and there's two lanes that are turning left, you should be in the rightmost lane of the direction that you're going. So the rightmost left turn lane. If you feel uncomfortable making this turn, you can also get off your bike and use the crosswalk and cross the intersection as a pedestrian. This is something that I am fond of, just because sometimes merging far enough over in time can be a challenge. But if I know that there's a crosswalk that pedestrians can use to safely cross the intersection, I rely on that. The next section of rules of the road is being predictable and thinking ahead. So you should be riding in a straight line. You should not be weaving in and out of traffic. I know a lot, but the safest way is to make sure that you're riding in a straight line. Use hand signals to point in direction, to point to signal turning right. You go like, I'm gonna back my camera up, to point right, use your hand and point right. I think I'm probably backwards. And then point left, you would use your hand extended straight outwards and point left. To signal that you are stopping, you're gonna stick your arm out and point it downwards, make a fist, and that signals that you're stopped. So hand signals are one way that you can ensure that people behind you have an idea of which way you are turning. Another way is eye contact and verbal calls. These are a good way to communicate with other roadway users, but of course, eye contact and verbal calls can sometimes get your message across, but other times, depending on the driver's ability to see you or hear you, or other roadway users' ability to hear and see you, can be limited. So just keep that in mind, but those can also be great tools to use to communicate. Another thing to keep in mind of is watching out for turning vehicles. So if you are in the rightmost lane, you should be aware of cars coming and hooking around you, because they might not be able to see you, or they might feel the need that they can get around you faster, so they'll pull a right hook right in front of you. So just be careful of that. Also, it's important to look out for debris, potholes, road changes, and other hazards. A good way to do this is either having a light, if it's dark outside, having a white light shining down towards the road or a little bit outwards in front of you so you can see the debris, and just looking ahead, not necessarily looking straight down, but looking perhaps like 5 or so feet in front of you. I would also say to take extra care around trucks, buses, and other larger vehicles that have bigger blind spots and make wide turns. This is important because a lot of times their vision is obscured by just like the machinery that they're in. It's a lot bigger, they're up higher than most bikes. So just take extra care around them, perhaps stay behind them. That might be safer, or if you can, pull off to the side and wait till they pass. Another thing, the other section that I wanted to highlight is being visible. So I know we've talked about this a little bit previously in other webinars, but being visible means having smart lane positioning, like the tactics that I talked about previously, but it also means using lights. So for lights, we say use a white light in the front and a red light in the back. Reflectors are also great. It would be the same, a white reflector in the front, red one in the back. And then also reflective gear. Reflective gear is a great way to make yourself visible in addition to your bike. You can wear, a jacket or a vest or something of that nature just to make yourself a little bit more visible when light is reflected onto whatever. But all in all, I would say go slow, have patience. Right now during COVID, some key things that I wanted to highlight is that having patience is probably our most key tip right now. Now is not the time to yell at people or negatively talk to community members about how you think what they are doing is wrong. The best thing that you can do is make sure that you are in charge of yourself and you're keeping yourself accountable for your decisions. If you do feel unsafe, I would say pull off to the side, verbally communicate in a nice way that you're coming towards them, but not to get negative or hasty and yell at people. And also, I know there's been a lot of discussion about face masks and when to wear it, should you wear it, do you have to wear it, different things like that. I personally, I wear a face mask when I'm riding closely to others, especially on crowded trails or roads, which I try to avoid as much as possible. But when I'm able to keep at least 6 feet distance, preferably more, when I'm able to keep such distance, then I take off my face mask and I don't wear one. But that's also something that is up to the person. It's personal responsibility and should not be demanded by other people and negatively communicated with other people. I think that is it. I actually blew through this much faster than I anticipated, but I will also share some other resources. If you have more questions about jurisdictional bike laws, then I would direct you to waba.org/bike laws. That can be found here. Another great tip, or another great resource rather, to find more information about where to ride when there's no infrastructure can be found in this WABA blog post. So in the instance that there's no bike lane, there's no sidewalk, you can find some more information about where it might be safe to ride. And a lot of my talking points for today I got from the League Smart Cycling Guide, which I will post right here. It looks like this, but it can be found on the League's website, which is www.bikeleague.org. And lastly, before I wrap up, I would also say something to keep in mind to help remember what I've just discussed today is BikeArlington's Be a PAL, P-A-L. So that means being predictable, alert, and lawful.
Thanks, Patricia. I appreciate it. If you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat box, and then we will answer those at the end. So next up, I'm going to be talking about planning a route and some of the apps that you can use to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and go through some of the resources that are available for you to plan your route when you go out to ride. So pull this out. Okay. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is Google Maps. I didn't learn to ride a bike until I was 25. And when I rode a bike, I only rode on trails. I was a strict trail rider, and I only rode in really nice weather, like 60 degrees and up. So I went to a workshop one day with Black Women Bike DC. It was all about riding in the winter, and it was about riding in the street. And I thought, why on earth would anyone do that? That sounds absolutely crazy to do that. I had never once considered my bike to be a source of transportation. So, but this class told me something different. I was like, wow, this is very interesting. I never thought about that. So I'm going to go through some of the ways that I started mapping out rides when I looked at using my bike for transportation. And the first one is probably the most obvious one. It's Google Maps. It's maps.google.com, and I'll send out a document with the links and stuff at the end, so you'll have a copy of that. Some of the things that I like about Google Docs and Google Maps and why I choose this as my go-to is for a number of reasons. One, even if you're not biking, it's nice that it has the option of car, transit, walking, bike, and if you're flying a long distance, it also has airplane routes. But the bike route is the one I use the most often. The other thing I like is that it will show trails and other bike lanes for you if you want to see that. So it'll pick the lanes and trails before it will pick streets. In most cases, it will do that. It gives you turn-by-turn directions. So if you have a speaker or you wear one headphone in your ear when you're riding so that you can hear the turn-by-turn directions, I really like that feature about it because I'm never lost that way. It'll also reroute you if you happen to get off track. It shows hills and elevation. So you can see, is this going to be a really hilly ride? Is this going to be pretty flat? Is there a hill at the end? And that's always nice. You can also adjust it. So right now I have in here going from work to WABA's office. And that's another thing I like, is that you can save favorites in places that you go to a lot. So if I were to, I ended up adjusting this, but what you can do is if you look at a route and you think, I really don't want to go that way. I know that the last time I went through there was some kind of construction going on, or it was a really busy street and I don't want to go that way. You can move one of the dots around to someplace you'd rather it be, and the whole route will adjust itself. Of course, it's not doing that today. It's been doing it all morning. When I went, there you go. So it'll adjust the route for you and show you a different route, and then also update on the side to show you, okay, that's not bad. I like that. It's pretty flat. It gets a little hilly towards the end. So you can adjust it, especially if you know it. I suggest, if you're going to use Google Maps as your main mapping source, that you bike or ride it at first before you go out on a main ride. Like, let's say this is your first time biking, when we all eventually get to go back outside and go to work or to a restaurant or wherever. That is something you test out first and see what's happening in that area, and then you can go back and adjust it and say, I really don't want to take that road because I saw they were building new homes there and the route is kind of bumpy, or it's the road is got a lot of potholes or something like that. So you can adjust it in that way. I also like the fact that you could use it on desktop and check it out, send it to your phone. There's options here to send directions to your phone. You can also do stop by stop, which is nice. So you can keep adding destinations. I need to go from here to WABA. I need to go from WABA to someplace else. You can put in those destinations and it'll keep showing you the route as you go along. And I mentioned that you can always move it around. The only con that I have with it is what I mentioned earlier, is that it doesn't always show you the very best route. So I would definitely ride it beforehand so that you have an idea of what that route looks like, because there may be a trail that you don't even want to take. I personally don't care for the Roosevelt Bridge trail. It's very narrow, but sometimes that's the best way to get somewhere. But it's nice to know that that is there and that I've ridden it. And you say, you can make a decision after that point if you want to do it or you would like to take a longer route. So that's Google Maps. The second one that I like is Citymapper. I don't use Citymapper a lot in the city, but when I traveled, especially to Chicago or New York, I love Citymapper. You can switch it between cities, and they have cities all over the world that you can use. But I'm going to look at DC, Baltimore. Again, it's on desktop and it's an app. The thing that I like about Citymapper, as you can see, they have Madrid and Paris and Seattle and Hamburg and Barcelona. It has all kinds of places listed there. One of the things that I like about Citymapper is that it is a multimodal transit unit. Multimodal transit application. So if you go down to where it says get me somewhere, you could put in where you are, put in where you want to end. So I'm going to put in my work address, and then I'm going to put in that I want to go to Boston Quarter, which is the mall that's just up the street from where I work. So what it will show you is that it's a 55-minute walk. It's a 32-minute bike ride. I could take a cab or drive, and it'll take 13 minutes. And then it'll give you suggested routes at the bottom. So if you want to take the metro, you want to take the bus, it can give you walk and bus. It'll give you a lot of different options. It'll even do, when I've been in other cities, I see it do like transit and bike. And so it'll show me like, take this transit route and then get off here, get a city bike or a divvy bike and take the divvy bike to this divvy bike station, drop it off here, and then walk the other distance. So I really like that it goes door to door that way. It's very convenient. It'll even show you where the cabbie state for in DC, where the cabbie stations are. If you choose cycle, it'll show you this is how many cabbies are there, where they're located, and then it'll tell you, walk to this particular station, pick up your bike, ride up to this place, drop the bike off at this place, and then you're going to walk the rest of the distance. So Citymapper is a great one to use in the region or if you travel. So I really highly recommend Citymapper, and it does come on an app. It works great on the subway, amazingly. It'll tell you to get off at this stop. It'll tell you to go to the southwest end, to walk up the stairs, to turn wherever, and then pick up a bike and then go on to your destination. So I really highly recommend Citymapper. The next one I'm going to talk about is TrailLink. This is part of Rails to Trails Conservancy. One of the things I like about this isn't route planning on the road, but it is route planning if you want to find a trail that's less crowded right now. And so you can explore the trails that are around. I picked Custis Trail for this one. You can view the trail map. You can print it out. You can share it with people. If you upgrade to their unlimited service, you can download and print the maps. You can put it on your Garmin. You can make guidebooks out of it. You can create custom routes. But things I like about it, though, it tells you where it is, where the trail heads are, what type of surface you're going to be riding on, so that you know, I might not be able to take my road bike on this because it's gravel or something like that. It'll tell you what types of activities are happening on the trail. So as you can see, biking, inline skating, it's wheelchair accessible. People walk on here, so you have an idea of what you're getting into. And they also crowdsource photos. So you can take photos and post them here, and people do reviews of the trail. So it gives you a description, and then people will review it and say, I really love this trail. It's great. It's easy to find. It's accessible. And then as you scroll down, you'll notice that they also tell you about some other nearby trails. So if you're looking for places to ride because you find that maybe the WNOD is too crowded, or the Mount Vernon is too crowded, or whatever, here's some other ways that you can find some trails to get some exercise and get out and bike during COVID. The next one that I want to share with you is one that we just posted about a week ago. It's called Taking It to the Streets, and our very own Henry Dunbar did some low stress routes that he's done to help alleviate some of the traffic that's on the trails right now. These are routes that don't have a lot of car traffic on them, that you can get on that aren't too crowded. And you can go through here. It's on our BikeArlington site. Again, I'll have it in a document I can share with you. And what's great about these is he tells you the neighborhood, what the points of interest are, and then shows you the route for it. So he has the MIMS and an education special at Harrison Hills, the Moms, Bike Boulevard, Southeast Street. And then if you know of a route you've been taking that circles Arlington, this is Arlington specific, you can certainly share your route. So you can enter your email and then enter in your route and submit it. And we'll add it to this page to help other people find low traffic, low stress routes that they can ride to get out and get exercise. We have a whole page. Our next one is, we have an entire page of maps and routes on the BikeArlington site. And one of the ones we have been promoting a lot lately is our customized routes. And this one is a great one if you are in Arlington and you're trying to get from point A to destination B. And in order to do that, maybe you don't know, maybe you haven't used Google Maps, maybe you have, but you can't quite figure out a really good route because the route Google is taking you on is complicated, or you don't want to be on that route. You'd much rather have more trails, less street, less trails. You want it to be flatter. You don't care if it's hilly. You have a specific thing you're looking for. So if you click here on Request Customized Route, it will pull up a form. You fill it in and tell us, do you want it to be fast? Do you want it to be flat? Do you mind streets? Do you mind trails? You enter all that information in, and a human being will customize a route for you to get you from point A to point B. You can also, if you scroll down, you'll notice that we have links to our bike map, our Arlington County bike map, which is a very popular map. People love this map. I'm always shocked by how many people still love paper maps. But it's a very popular map, and it lists out all of Arlington. And so that's an option for you too, that you can download that, or you can request and order one. We also have our Arlington County comfort level map. Our new one will be coming out in a few weeks. But you can download the comfort map here. The comfort map is designed to show you low stress routes, very much like Taking It to the Streets that I just showed you. This is designed to show you where are the trails, the protected bike lanes, the bike lanes, the bike boulevards, the places where bikes are going to be most comfortable being. And then it will also show you some routes where you say, that's a little dicey. And maybe if you're a more experienced rider, you don't mind riding in the street there. And then it'll show you like highways where where you shouldn't be. But you can see the range and the levels color coded by where is it most safe and most comfortable to where is it not safe and not comfortable to ride for bicyclists. And if you scroll to the bottom, you'll also see that we have a list of nearby bike resources for other regions in the area. So we have the DC bike map, Alexandria, Fairfax, Montgomery County. So you can check out all of those resources as well in case you think, I can bike somewhere else. I don't have to necessarily bike here. I just want to try something different. You can check out these resources as well. Finally, when it comes to asking about a bike route, and maybe you've tried these others, something really specific maybe, this is a great place to go to ask this question, which is the Washington Area Bike Forum. You can go through here and see that there's a lot of stuff in here. Many people are familiar with it simply from Freezing Saddles competition, which runs from January 1 to March 19th every year. You're supposed to ride 1 mile, at least a mile every day during the winter months. But this is a great place to go because you may have a question about, I just need to figure out how to get around this particular part. Very knowledgeable people here that can give you some advice on that and say, I don't like going through Main Avenue in Southwest DC, even though there's a bike lane there on the sidewalk. It's always crowded with people running and walking. What's another option? And somebody may say, oh, you know what, you could take that route along the Case Bridge and come down on Main and just ride that way to wherever your destination is. That actually happened to me, so I'm giving that as an example. But that's one of the things that you can do is go into a place like this and ask some people who ride all the time if they have some other suggestions. So these are all different ways to plan out your route. I also want to share some apps with you that are, these are honorable mention ones. And I'm saying honorable mention because I haven't personally used these a lot, but I do know people use them. And I think I just saw in chat when I glanced over there, somebody mentioned it, which is Map My Ride. And if that people have questions about it, I'm going to leave it to the people in the audience to answer this because I don't use this I don't use Map My Ride personally, but I've gone in here. I know that you can create a route. You can log a route in here. You can search for routes. There's a whole listing of people who put their routes in here, and you can check out what their routes are and then follow those routes. And they tell you the distance and the elevation, and you can see all of that there in Map My Ride. The other one that I use minimally, I've used it, by minimally, I mean I've used it 2 times, is the Ride with GPS. And I know this is great for mapping out a ride. I particularly see people use it when they're doing cue sheets for bigger events. Maybe you're having 20, 30 people come to a ride and you want to have, you want to make sure that if anybody does happen to lag behind, that they at least know where they're going. So people will print this out with the turn-by-turn directions. I have used this with minimal success, to be honest, because what I found is that on the app, if you've mapped out a ride and you happen to get off track, it won't reroute you. So that leaves me lost a lot if something is off. So, but people love it. People really love Ride with GPS. And I think for big group rides, it's awesome because you have that cue sheet. It's printed out and people can just follow the cue sheet. It also goes to your Garmin if you want to use it. There's an app for it that you can use on your mobile device. You can add in points of interest and pictures on the map as well to help you kind of navigate, like, oh, this is a place we should stop, or this is a point of interest, so that you know this is some place that you want to check out and spend some time there if that's something that you want to do. So that's Ride with GPS. I know there are people in the biking world who love this app, and I would say definitely talk to them to get more information about it because they use it far more than I have had to use it. Strava is pretty much the bike app from what I see in the biking community. It's the app that so many people use. It's a social app, so you can give people high fives and thumbs up. You can comment on people's posts. Like I did one the other day where I said I fell off my bike ride. I usually call mine by whatever I'm doing, and people will come in and say, "Oh my God, are you okay?" Yeah, I'm okay. Um, so you can do that. I've seen people ride and map out images as they ride. So they'll ride something and it'll end up being a heart or end up being a perfect circle or whatever. So I've seen people do that on here, and you can see their route. It'll tell you the elevation gain, the distance that you rode, how long you were out there. A lot of people get into the competitive spirit of it, where you can be king of the mountain, and that's, how fast did you get up that particular hill? Did you have a personal record of riding on a particular street? And so if you really get into those kind of stats and training, this is a great app to have. I use it every time I ride, but I'm so low level with it. I just want to know that I rode a certain number of miles that day. I don't really care how long it took me. I'm not trying to do anything fancy with it. I just want to know that, okay, I got out today, I rode 9 miles, I'm good, I'm happy. I don't look deeply into the stats. But one of the things I do like about this is that in the settings part, you can go in and list. So for instance, you could list your gear that you have. And so you could say, hey, I have these bikes listed. And because you can see how many you're listing, how many miles you've ridden, it'll tell you how many miles, roughly, if you record it all the time, how many miles are on your bike and your tires. And so that'll give you an idea of do I, how often am I changing my brakes? So the next time you change your brakes, so the next time you change your tire, if you get a flat or anything like that, you kind of have an idea of, yeah, I've been riding a lot, or I'm not riding hardly at all, or I have a bike I've never been on. Maybe I should sell it and then I can upgrade and get a nicer bike. Like it can give you can kind of make some decisions based on that. Also, although this has nothing to do with biking, it also tracks your runs and it tracks your swim. I know it does on my Fitbit. If I turn it on, it'll track it in my Fitbit. So it's kind of nice that it'll track all of those things in that one app. How long I was swimming, how many, what the distance, and the distance that I swam. So those are some really nice features in Strava. Like the other apps I talked about, they also exist on your mobile device. I'm going to I was going to talk about Capital Bike Share, and since I just said it, I'm going to talk about it very briefly. I was going to talk about this as a route planner. However, I just found out an hour ago that they took out their route planning feature in it. So there used to, in the app, it used to be that you could pick up a bike, say, right here at 14th Street in front of the Ronald Reagan building, and maybe you wanted to go to GW University, and it would like map, you could put in the map and it would show you how to do that, but they took that feature away. So you can't really route plan. If you pick up a cabbie, I would say use Citymapper, and Citymapper will tell you where to pick it up and where you can drop it off. So that's how I would use, if you're using a cabbie, that's how I would do it. The last two that I want to talk about are not apps specifically. They're also not necessarily about route planning, but they are about biking and what things that could happen during your ride that can be important to you. So the first one I'm going to talk about is road ID. And what I want to talk about as far as road ID is not so much the actual road ID itself, although as you can see, they have bands, they have things that go on your wrist, they can go on your watch if you have it, on your iPad or whatever. I'm sorry, your Apple Watch rather, if you have one, and it just tells your ID. It's really nice to have in case you're out and something happens to you. It could be, we hope this never happens, but it could be a car crash. You could just fall over and hurt yourself. It could be that you just got lost and you're stuck somewhere, or you maybe you're diabetic and you hadn't eaten that day and you should have, and maybe there's, you're feeling a little weak and woozy. So all of those things can be, you could put those things on your road ID. But I'm not talking about it so much because of that, but because of another feature that it has, which is, let me pull this up. For free, you can get, I hope you can see this, on your phone, you can get Road ID app. It's doesn't cost anything. And you can get a lock screen that has your information on it. So it will say, oops, sorry, that went out. So it will say your name, your city, and then you can put 2 or 3 points of, in case of emergency contacts on there. And you can also put if you're allergic to anything on there, if you can see all of that. So this is really nice because many of us will have our phone with us, and we may think, I don't need anything like that because I have my phone. But then we find out you have a code on your phone that no one knows except you, and so we can't actually contact anybody in your phone. This is on your lock screen, and so if anything happens to you and someone finds your phone, they can easily open your phone, hit the whatever button that turns it on, and they'll have all the information of the people that they need to contact to let them know that something is going on. Also, if you get road ID, the other thing that's really nice is that if you are someone that maybe say you have a heart murmur, or maybe you have epilepsy, you have something that people are concerned, a condition that people are really concerned about, if you go out that something could happen to you and no one would know, there is a feature in here that you can use on the app that's called taking a ride or about to ride or something like that. It will let someone know that you've designated, that let them know that you're about to go on this ride, and they can track you as you ride. So if for some reason you stop somewhere for a long time and they're concerned because this ride should have only taken you an hour and a half and it's been 4 hours and you've been at that same spot, they can send out somebody to help you because they know where you are. So those are 2 things I like about that. And then the last one I want to share with you is Rackspotter. Rackspotter is pretty cool. Again, not necessarily an app, but once you've done a ride, you want to stop somewhere when things reopen, you may get to this location and you say, I have no idea if I can park my bicycle there. And so you may decide to use Rackspotter. So with Rackspotter, it's crowdsourced. These are all put in by people all over the region. It runs across the region. You see there's a whole bunch, a ton of them over here in DC. But let's say you're going to Penrose. This is where your final destination is, over near Columbia, right? And what it'll show you is there's 6 spaces. It'll tell you the type of bike rack there. You can, if you go someplace and it's not listed here, you can log into Rackspotter, take a picture of the location, and then put that information in. It's located at this place. It's this type of rack. It has how many spaces available. Now, it won't tell you if those spaces are available, like in real time. So you may get there and all 6 spaces are taken, but you at least know that there's some place there to park your bike when you get there, as opposed to getting there and then having to sort of wander around and figure out if you can, lock it to a pole, or if can you take it inside the building or anything like that. You at least know what's going on. So those are the route planning applications that I wanted to share with you today. I'm sure there's a ton of other ones that I have never used or are not familiar with, but I'm going to go over to the questions and check this out. So let me stop sharing my screen.
Renee, one question that came in while you were, that was in reference to my portion, was etiquette regarding what side of the bridge you along the flow of traffic.
That's a great question. So this is what I want to say. That I think it depends on how wide the bridge is. Like sometimes the bridge is wide enough that the traffic can flow in both directions. Like I'm trying to think. The Key Bridge. The Key Bridge is technically wide enough that you can do traffic in both directions. The other part is that it depends on is what side do you want to be on. So when I'm coming from, say, WABA back to work, I want to be on the side that's going into Roslyn, so I don't have to try to cross that weird intersection at North Lynn. So I'll go on that side. I don't know what direction it's in. I'm sorry. So I would be on that side of the road. If I'm going towards Georgetown, I would get on the side that's on the right-hand side from Roslyn and go across that bridge. The Anacostia River Trail, if you're familiar with that, it goes over, or it was going over the Anacostia River over the Frederick Douglass Memorial Bridge, or the South Capitol Street Bridge. It's a narrow bridge. And in the morning, I would try to go with the flow of traffic, and in the evening, go with the flow of traffic back. But it puts me out in a place I don't want to be in. And so I would end up taking the same route back. But it's narrow, so you always have to end up stopping, sort of like the Roosevelt Bridge. So I would say it depends. It depends on how wide the bridge is. It depends on what side of the road you want to end up on. It's probably best to do it with the flow of traffic if the bridge is wide enough. That's what I would suggest, and it's in the direction you want to go in. So it depends.
I think that's the only question that came in while you were presenting.
Okay, cool.
And those are the only questions that are in the chat at the moment, but feel free to add some questions.
Yep. Yeah, feel free to ask questions. I'm going to go ahead and, you're welcome, Meredith. I will send this out to you so that you'll have the links of all of the things that I showed, so you'll have an idea of where they are. All right, so I don't believe in having, keeping you to one just because, so let me, if there aren't any more questions, feel free, if you don't have any more questions, you can reach out to Patricia. She's at patricia.miguel@waba.org if you have questions about the rules of the road or any type of trail etiquette. And you can reach out to me at renee.moore@bikearlington.com. I'm the BikeArlington program manager. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Or if you want to share other apps with me that you use, I'd love to know more about them and check them out. And I'd be happy to add them to that document, because I know there's a lot out there. These are just the ones that I know are most often used and the ones that I think most people will end up going to first. But I'm sure there's a ton that I don't know about.
Renee?
Yep. Do you have another question?
For nearby riders to go on a ride together or to get familiar. So they're looking.
What's a good source to, sorry, it was bouncing around. What's a good source to look for nearby riders to go on a ride together or to get familiar? During this time, I would check the BikeArlington, the Washington Area Bike Forum. You could also check meetup groups to see, check on meetup.com and then look for bicycle groups that are there. And you can find other people, especially it depends on also what your level of riding is. If you just want leisure riding, do you want to get in a group that's going pretty fast, you can check it out by that. Those are two places I would check. And then there's also Potomac Peddlers. If you really like to ride, I would check out Potomac Peddlers. They typically go outside of the area. They're not really commuter bicyclists. They're more recreational riders. And so if you wanted to ride with the group, that would be it. There's also the Oxon Hill Bike Club. There's a ton of bike clubs. Getting It In, Brother to Brother, Sister to Sister. There's a lot of groups out there. I don't know if they're riding now because of COVID, but those are the ones I would check. And I believe almost all of those are on meetup.com.